These are things that are really important and build a sense of community and belonging, trust, and safety. And the reason why these are important is because when we bond with other people, it reduces our stress level, which reduces inflammation in the brain. And that's what we call social bonding.
Kindness.
Why kindness?
Because it makes a difference.
For connection.
Kindness can change lives.
It's contagious.
The science says you'll be glad you did.
Kindness is the key to a healthier, happier world.
Why kindness? While no one answer is the same, one thing is clear. Kindness is something we all know, but do we know why it matters? I'm your host, Jaclyn Lindsey, co-founder CEO of kindness.org, and you're listening to Why Kindness. Hello, Kindmaker. Today we welcome Dr. Suraj Samtani. Dr. Samtani is a clinical psychologist and postdoctoral researcher at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. He earned his bachelor's in psychology with honors from the University of Sydney in 2010 before completing a combined PhD and master's in clinical psychology at UNSW in 2015. Dr. Samtani's research focuses on social connections, social cognition, and the social detriments of health and mental well-being in older adults, a field he was drawn to by his great-grandfather's experience with dementia. His work aims to identify key risk and protective factors for healthy aging and to develop novel interventions to help older adults stay socially and mentally healthy. Outside of his research, Dr. Samtani is a passionate music lover. He enjoys teaching piano and singing, and he unwinds by playing the guitar. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Samtani. Welcome.
Hi, Jaclyn. Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
It's our honor. We are so thrilled to have you and can't wait to dive in. We open up every show with the question, why kindness? What would you say to that?
I think kindness is something that makes us really human and something that is really essential to our way of being. If we are kind to ourselves and to other people, that's how we find joy and happiness. And it's often the cure for our own nervousness and anxiety when we switch the spotlight away from us onto other people. That's what I love about it.
Hear, hear. I love that. And for our listeners who don't know, where are you calling in from?
So I'm calling in from Sydney, Australia.
Okay. Are you a native to Sydney?
No, my life's sort of been a little bit like a food court, to be honest. I grew up in India, in Mumbai. I did high school in Auckland in New Zealand. I did my undergrad and postgrad in Sydney. So now I call Sydney home and I love it. It's almost 39 degrees Celsius. Today is going to be a hot day, almost beach weather on this weekend. Really excited.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I had to quickly figure out math to Fahrenheit when I hear Celsius, but beach, I know the term beach. So yeah, that sounds beautiful. Okay, so Sydney is home. You do amazing work. We've heard your bio, but in your words, how would you describe your job?
My job is, as a dementia researcher, to understand what are the risk factors for dementia. With over 57 million people in the world right now living with dementia and many millions of new cases each year, it's really important that we understand how to identify and reduce our risk. And my particular focus is also on the power of social connections in helping us to live healthy and long lives.
What led you to this work?
For me, it's a really personal story, Jaclyn. When I was still in India as a 5-6-year-old, my great-grandfather was diagnosed with dementia. So he used to work as a priest and do acts of kindness, go to people's houses when they had a baby or bought a new house and do prayers and ceremonies for them to welcome in a new chapter of their life. And he used to walk 2 hours a day. But then my parents bought a house in a new suburb of Mumbai, and we all moved there. And what happened was he was really attached to me. He wanted to be with me, so he moved with us. But he didn't know anyone in this area. So he couldn't do those acts of kindness anymore. And what we noticed is that his memory declined very rapidly without those social interactions, without those acts of kindness. And 6 months later, he couldn't recognize me. So that's some of my earliest memories of, someone I really love who can't recognize me anymore. That was really scary as a 6-year-old. And then 6 months later, he passed away. So I always thought there was something about the power of social connection, but also these acts of kindness that are really important, and community engagement, which is really important in protecting our brain health. So when this role came up to look at social connections and dementia, I was all in.
Wow. Is this a field of research that's emerging? Has it been around a long time? This theory that there might be a relationship between social connection and dementia?
We were really seeing research in this area emerge over the last 15 to 20 years. The Harvard study of adult development is really interesting. They have done the longest study ever. It's been running for 80 years, and they found that loneliness is as bad for us as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, which is shocking. They found that people who have good social connections can delay the start of health conditions like heart disease to 15 years later. And that's really great. I mean, I really believe in the quality of life, and if we can extend that quality of life, that would be really amazing. So it seems to be the secret sauce that no one talks about. We're always on about physical health and mental health, which are extremely important, but there is a third pillar which I just want to draw attention to, which is our social health.
I love this. I mean, this is so much of the work that we think about at kindness.org and doing research to try to understand the role of kindness in our relationships and how it then influences our physical health, our mental health, emotional health. And we've seen exactly what you're saying be a core part of how people can improve their health and well being when they prioritize that. So very resonant and excited to dive into this with you. Let me ask you first, for all of us, including me, who might be ignorant to this, which is, what is the difference, distinction between Alzheimer's and dementia?
That's a great question, Jaclyn, because in these terms are used interchangeably a lot, and it's really important to know that dementia is a set of conditions. There's over 100 different types, and this is where your cognitive changes start to impact your daily life, your ability to live independently. For example, manage your finances or cook your own food. And the most common type of dementia is Alzheimer's, where we experience memory loss. So it is a type of dementia.
Okay. Didn't know that. Thank you. Yeah, I should have looked it up, but then I thought I'll just ask the doctor himself. So thank you. That's very helpful. I feel like I hear a lot about Alzheimer's, but it does feel like they seem one and the same. So very helpful. So dementia is like the umbrella term for anyone struggling with, okay. With the research on social connection, what have you studied with that? Like, tell us some of the studies you've executed or led or been a part of that have helped look at this, and what have the findings shown us?
This is where I get really excited because, our starting point was we know social connections are important, but as someone who wants to know more about this, I wanted to know what's the recipe. What are the
Yeah.
ingredients and just how much do we need to create this recipe for brain health? So what we did was we assembled all the ingredients of social health, and we had data from 14 different countries from all around the world, and people who were followed up for up to 14 years. And we had almost 40,000 people from across the globe. And we looked at whether people lived alone, whether they were in a relationship, how often they saw friends or family, how often they did community activities, how satisfied they were with their relationships, how much support they were getting, and how often they felt lonely. And then what we did is okay, well, while it might be important to look at these ingredients, do these ingredients matter even after we account for all the known risk factors for dementia? For example, smoking, drinking, physical activity, heart disease, all of these things, hypertension. So what we did is we accounted for all of them, and then we put in all the social health ingredients. And what we found was that two emerged as really important. The people who saw friends or family outside the home, monthly or weekly or more often, and people who had someone to confide in. There you go, is an act of kindness. Their risk of dementia was half compared to everyone else,
Wow.
which is massive.
Wow.
We didn't expect
This
that.
was
And not
consistent,
only
like,
that,
across the board? Sorry, I just wanna clarify, when you say half, like, across all 40,000 participants, or every country was around the same? Like, I'm very curious how that breakdown. That's amazing.
it was very similar across countries. And when we look at the overall result,
Wow.
the risk reduced by half, which was really amazing. There wasn't a lot of variation. So we saw very similar findings in every country around the world.
Wow. Okay. And is this, in your mind, showing us preventative measures? Is that something you're looking at, or is it about delaying, the symptoms and the onset of it? Like, tell us a little bit about how you see this, what your guidance would be to people if you start to worry that your loved one is showing symptoms where they're not remembering. Like, I'd love to hear a little bit about what it means.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we want to know, not only can we prevent dementias like Alzheimer's and other dementias, but also can we slow down the rate of cognitive decline? So we found that it did both. It not only reduced our risk of developing dementia, but it also put the brakes on the rate of cognitive decline. This is really important because someone could have changes, but we want to slow it down.
Right. I wanna go in so many directions, but I'm just fascinated. Okay, so with that, if someone is sensing their loved one is showing early signs, what would you tell them right now to do? What should they be prioritizing? Getting them out of the house more? Like, how do you create environments that nurture these findings?
Well, if you notice that someone you're looking after, someone you care for, someone you love is noticing changes in their memory and thinking, the first thing I would try to do is go see a geriatrician or a memory clinic and get their memory tested so that you have a baseline. They may also run some blood tests and brain imaging, because we want to have a baseline and see where people are at. But from a social health perspective, what's really important is for them to have really rich social engagement outside the home. So this is doing things that combine social activity with either physical activity like a walking group, dance, music group, or a cognitive activity like playing board games in the community, or a cultural group that keeps our histories and traditions alive. These are things that are really important and build a sense of community and belonging, trust, and safety. And the reason why these are important is because when we bond with other people, it reduces our stress level, which reduces inflammation in the brain. And that's what we call social bonding.
I didn't know that. Okay. I feel like a lot of times with this work, we have had people say, well, I'm an introvert. It's hard for me to be around people. It overwhelms me. They have anxiety. There's social anxiety, right? These very real things that exist for people where it might not come naturally to want to get out of the house or to go build those relationships. What would you say to them? How could you give them gentle encouragement to be willing to try?
I think we all have something that we are interested in, whether we're introverts or extroverts. So I'll give you an example. from someone I treated in the clinic. I won't use her name or personal details, but she was someone who had recently retired, and she'd stopped meeting her best friend because she felt a lack of sense of self. She felt a bit depressed. She had withdrawn from the world, and she was noticing changes in her memory or thinking. And so I asked her, well, what's something that you enjoy doing? Because she was an extrovert. She didn't want to be part of big groups where she had to be on the spot and, just have free flowing conversations. That made her really nervous. And she said, well, I used to really love photography. I said, well, where's your camera? And she said, well, I don't know where it is, but I'm going to go home and look for this camera. So she went home, and then she came back the next session with a professional DSLR camera. And I thought, where was your camera? This is amazing. I've never seen a professional camera in someone's house before. And she said, it was just in my linen closet, hiding behind some towels and blankets for the last few years. So she took it out. She decided to go around joining a photography group where she was just with one or two other people, which was really comfortable for her as an introvert. But then she did something that was really powerful. She tapped into the power of kindness because she thought, well, my sister has multiple sclerosis and I want to raise money for research into this. So I'm going to join a charity walk and raise funds. And so she did that. And as soon as she did that, she came back with her mood lifted. She wasn't feeling anxious anymore. She felt a sense of drive and purpose, that she was a completely different person. So kindness has the power to heal us by healing other people.
I love that story. Thank you. The first research we did was looking at the impact of helping others on your own well being. So we did a meta analysis, and the paper is called Happy to Help. And it's a lit review that looks at it analyzed all of the papers out there on this topic. And of course, no surprise, but it's so good when you have the evidence that helping others has a significant impact on your well-being. And it's that idea of what it does when you do the kind act, how it's then influencing you or impacting you. So, and then the witness, the person who's seeing the kind act take place and the impact it has on them. So it can be like a 3-for-1 if you're lucky. And that to me is the power, right? Like the contagion effect and what that can do for not just her, but now the people around her, now the MS Society, and then her sister-in-law. And I just think there's so much power in that. And I'm so interested in is how do you scale that, right? Like how do we make that become the way that we're all showing up and the way that we're all getting out there and living?
That's so fascinating that you've done this lit review and meta-analysis and you found this result, because you definitely feel that at a human level, don't you? Just changes something.
Yes. Yeah. It's always good to have the science to back you up, though.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you've been doing this work for how long? How long have you been studying this?
So I've been doing this work since 2019.
You recently were able to bring this work to life in an incredible show. So it's Nat Geo's Chris Hemsworth, A Road Trip to Remember. And you're featured as really the expert voice on this topic. So tell us a little bit about the journey to becoming first a part of the project.
So my journey towards becoming part of this Nat Geo documentary with Chris Hemsworth was really interesting, I guess, because I received an email out of the blue from Utopia, who are the production company that made this documentary. And I just done my cybersecurity training at UNSW where I work. And I thought, is this a phishing email? Like, why would anyone contact me to be part of a TV show? So I wasn't sure whether to report it as fishing, and I hovered over it for a long time. And then I said, maybe before I get rid of this email, I should just Google it and see who these people are. And it turned out to be that they were the producers working with National Geographic with Chris Hemsworth on his Limitless series, and they wanted to do something on social connections and dementia, and that's why they reached out to me. So we had a couple of conversations over Zoom across different time zones, and then a few months later they got back to me saying, we would actually like you not just to advise on the science behind this episode, but also to film with Chris. So that was incredible. And there I was filming with Thor himself in Marvel Stadium, and it was just incredible.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And I guess your job was supportive. They were okay with it, right? Good for them. It puts you guys on the map in a really cool way.
Yeah, I mean, we are dementia researchers at the Center for Healthy Brain Aging in Sydney. So this is a great platform for us to be able to share all the research we've been doing over the last couple of decades with the world, and to tell people what they can do to reduce their risk, which is really the whole point of us doing this work.
So I don't want to give too much away. We want to encourage people to go watch the show, but I was able to see it before coming in today. There were a few things in it that really stood out to me that I'd love to talk about with you and your experience with it. I think first, I was really struck by the idea of going back in time to try to have his father connect with people in his life from many, many years ago, and to see what that might trigger, stimulate toward what he's going through. And we'll tell the listeners the quick premise is that Chris Hemsworth his dad is showing signs. Has he been officially diagnosed? I'm trying to remember if they said that he's been diagnosed officially with Alzheimer's dementia.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. Okay. And so he takes his dad on a road trip to try to see what they can do around this research, social connection, and, going back in time to things where he might feel positive memories and associations. What else would be important to know about how the design of the road trip came to be? Like, how much of it did you help shape or inform what they did on the road trip?
Well, we really try to bring in the science behind reminiscence therapy and social connections, and to assemble something that would be personally meaningful to them. And
Mm,
the whole idea of reminiscence therapy is to take places, people, objects, photos, songs, things like that from the past to help you practice retrieving memories. And the more we
mm,
practice retrieving those memories, the stronger our connection to those memories becomes, and becomes easier to retrieve them. So the idea was to go back to somewhere that was actually meaningful for them and would give them a sense of practice retrieving memories, but also ultimately social connection. And really that led to one answer, which is you go back to where they used to live before. And so the road
uh-huh.
trip goes back to the outskirts of Melbourne where Chris lived when he was younger, and then ultimately back to where he lived when he was a toddler, where Craig had a lot of his years as a young father, and the time he spent in that community where he has all of these connections going back to those people where he felt a sense of belonging. That was
Mm-hmm.
really, really powerful. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I thought the idea of recreating the childhood home, which is what they did. I mean, they went and found the furniture and like posters. It was incredible how they were able to do that. I imagine not everyone can do that, right? It's hard. I know it showed and illustrated something incredibly provocative and powerful. What about for everyone who can't go back in time? What does reminiscent therapy look like for the everyday person? How can we do that ourselves?
The reminiscence therapy is actually quite simple to do without the resources of National Geographic and recreating your childhood.
Right.
That's not possible for most of us, but what we all have is songs from the past. We have family photo albums that we can go back to. So for me, it's something really simple like sitting down with the person that you love and going through photo albums with them and talking about those memories. Or even just having a conversation, even if you don't have any albums with you, telling someone, tell me about when you met your partner. Tell me about, when you had your first child, or tell me about the job that you used to do when you were in your 30s, or, taking people back to those times where they overcame challenges and times where they shaped their identity. Those are the sorts of things we need to be doing in reminiscence therapy.
Okay, I love that. Yeah. I haven't recreated my childhood home, but I grew up in Key West, and on a visit recently went to my childhood home and just was like walking around the yard and showing my husband like, oh, this tree house and this is where I did this. And like the people came out from the house and they're like, hello, what are you doing? I was like, I used to live here. I have a free pass, and they're like, you can't just come on our lawn. So I don't recommend that either. So let's lean to Dr. Samtani's ideas of how to go back in time. Okay, so the next thing I found that was hard, but I think was so important to see was his dad in real time in the show struggling to remember things, right? I remember there was an instance where Chris's mom, his wife, Craig's wife, was coming to the home, and he keeps asking, when is she coming? When is she coming? Even though he's been told many times she'll be there later. And there was another instance where they were reconnecting with his friends from when he was young, and he didn't know he was talking to one of the friends. So those were two, I felt as a viewer, just so hard to watch, so difficult to see in real time him struggling to remember. But then you saw it come full circle, and you saw him remember, and you saw him connect, and you saw the power, and that tension, I think, is a really important thing to recognize and realize when you're thinking about this work and that being a reality for so many people. What would you recommend someone does in the moment? Like in the moment when they're not remembering who the person is or what time someone's coming, what are the tactics that you can do?
It's really normal when someone's experiencing cognitive changes that they might have lapses, because not every day is the same. Some days you might remember the information, some days you might find that a bit harder to remember. So firstly, if you're experiencing the changes yourself, it's really important that you're being kind to yourself and not putting pressure on yourself to remember that right now. Sometimes saying something to people around you like, oh, I know this, but it will come to me later, is a nice way of phrasing it so that it takes the pressure off. Because really, most of the time, people don't care if you remember things at that particular moment and they're understanding. But for other people, if you're looking after or caring for someone living with dementia, it's really important to be kind to them and not correct them, not speak for them, and give them that autonomy and respect just like you would for anyone else. I mean, especially if the person is repeating themselves, the most important thing is to respond as if they're saying that thing or asking that thing to you for the first time, and not having that irritated sort of tone of voice when replying to them, because to them, they're asking you this for the first time, and it's really important to give them that same respect that you would give anyone else.
It's beautiful. Thank you. And a great reminder, as I feel like we can all imagine, if we haven't been through it, the frustration, but that patience and grace is so important, allowing them to retain dignity with all of it. And um, I appreciate all of that perspective. I wouldn't have thought of that. So thank you. The show can be seen. It's streaming. It's out on Disney and Hulu, called Chris Hemsworth, A Road Trip to Remember. So just grateful that you were open to speaking about it and sharing more about it, and encourage everyone to go check it out. And I'm curious now, with this research, where's it going? What's next for you? What do you see the next 5, 10 years looking like in this field?
It's a really exciting time because we've raised awareness, but now we want to move into changing things for people, helping people. And what we're doing for that is two things. We're developing new interventions, and we're also
Mhm.
diving into the evidence around broader structural inequalities that drive these risk factors. So we are, firstly, at the moment, I'm running a randomized control trial that's funded by Dementia Australia Research Foundation, and they've provided me with a 3-year fellowship to run a new intervention to reduce loneliness for people
Mm.
experiencing cognitive changes, people with mild cognitive impairment, which is the precursor to dementia, and people living with dementia. So we have online groups that we run on Zoom for people experiencing these changes, and we have different topics in each session that we discuss. And it's been really interesting because we found that people have formed really lifelong connections through this
Mm.
program, and they've, now they call each other every week. Some of them go visit each other. Some of them have been to, each other's family weddings and important events. And some of them are in very different parts of Australia. They are in regional areas or urban areas, but somehow they've just discovered this friendship, and that someone else is experiencing changes and understands them unlike everyone else around them.
Mhm.
And that bond
Mhm.
has been really healing for them. So that's what we're doing right now. And I'm really curious to know whether it works, whether people feel more confident, more able to socialize, more feeling like themselves after this.
Okay, so how do we watch that space? How do we track it or see the results in a few years? Like, what's the best way to follow along with your work?
Well, we are doing this study through the Center for Healthy Brain Aging. So any results from this study will be on our website by next year,
Mhm.
because we've just wrapped up the final groups for this study. And we
Oh,
will
wow.
also be putting out a journal article and a media release related to the paper when it comes out. So you be able to look up my name or the Center for Healthy Brain Aging and see the latest results in a few months.
Amazing. Congratulations. I know how hard research is. And it takes a lot to be able to get something that not, passes muster, but like contributes meaningfully and teaches us something and is publishable. That in and of itself is amazing. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's really meaningful for us to do this work.
One thing to share that maybe is an idea for other research, or just to share that we did this. When kindness.org was launching, we wanted to create ideas that could activate kindness in really new ways and help show people the breadth and scope of kindness globally. And so one of the initiatives that we launched with is, we called it Breathe Life, and it was giving elders an opportunity to pass wisdom on and share their life with others. And we did that by giving them an iPad, training them on the iPad. These were people who were living alone. They weren't able to leave their rooms. They were, for different reasons, having to stay in their nursing facility. We then put out a call that you could get wisdom from an elder. And we had thousands of people send in questions around the world that they needed advice on. And so it was
Mhm.
almost like like an advice column. And these elders would get the letters sent and they would write back or do audio of their wisdom. And we did before and after measurements of their well being and their happiness and connection. And not only did all of these people get the benefit, they never met, but strangers, like advice on marriage, love, work, moving. And it was just amazing to see this engagement. It was like a little experiment, but the results were incredible for these 3 elders that participated, and the impact it had on their own happiness, well being, worth. They felt like they were still able to contribute meaningfully in a way. So I'll send it to you after this so you can see more about what we did.
Yes, please. That sounds so interesting. Love that.
Yeah, it turns out they have a lot to say. They felt like they had a lot of wisdom to give. So there were a lot of people who needed it.
This season of Why Kindness is made possible by the Wasserman Glasser family in loving memory of Sandra K. Wasserman. Sandra believed that kindness could change the world, and she had a remarkable way of making everyone feel seen, valued, and loved. Her signature phrase was simple, yet powerful: "Thank you for your kindness." Her belief in kindness as a force for change is the very heartbeat of this podcast. In her honor, we invite listeners to do the same. Think of someone who has shown you kindness and let them know. A simple thank you can ripple farther than we ever could imagine. From the Wasserman Glasser family, thank you for your kindness. We are honored to carry Sandra's light forward into this season.
I always like to ask our guests if there's anything else you would want to speak to or share that you didn't have a chance to talk about.
One thing that I would like to share is at the moment we are looking into structural and socioeconomic risk factors for dementia, because until now the onus or burden to change things has all been on the individual, which I think ignores the broader influences that we have. So, for example, discrimination we might face, for example, sexism, ageism, racism, things like that, socioeconomic barriers, the type of occupation or education that we have, the green spaces that we have around us, the financial support and resources and opportunities we have. So what we really want to do is shine a light on what are often invisible factors that take us to this point in our lives and shine a light on them and take the focus a little bit away from individual blame and more towards policy changes and societal changes. So I really hope that we see more awareness about that in the future.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that. I do think it's so important to recognize the equitable side of all of this. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so as a scientist or researcher, hopefully you can appreciate we're trying to bring the measurement of kindness out into the world. And we created what's called the kindness quotient, or the KQ, as a rigorous but hopefully very engaging and fun way for people to examine how they show up and their willingness to help others. So I think you had a chance to take your KQ. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And was it KQ coworker or KQ neighbor? Because we have two editions. Do you know which one you took?
I took the coworker one.
Okay. How kind are you? Are you comfortable sharing your score? I imagine it's really high.
I was surprised that there were scores above 100% on this, because I was like, how is this possible? But I got 105.
Okay. It's possible because the scale is designed in a way to show that sometimes we value others more than ourselves, like a willingness to do more.
Yeah.
And so that's how that works. And in that case, we usually revert to self-kindness. Like, it's okay to give more kindness internally sometimes, because if you give so much of yourself, you have to keep your own cup filled. So 105, I'm not surprised. You are
Yeah.
probably so wonderful to work with. I bet your colleagues would all say the same thing.
Well, I think it's my clinical psychology background. I still work 1 day a week as a clinical psychologist and then 4 days a week as a researcher. So that's that part of me coming out, but I should probably look after myself a little bit more.
Yes, that will be our encouragement. So I'm going to check in on that. As a researcher who knows and understands more of like how, studies are designed or how something like this might have been created, curious what your thoughts were on it.
Well, some of the questions really surprised me because firstly, I wasn't even expecting there to be a coworker kindness scale to begin with. So I love the idea because, a lot of the time that we spend our waking hours is not really often with families, often with coworkers. during
Mhm.
most of the working hours. So it's really important that we're being kind in all the different contexts that we're.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And there were some questions which really took me by surprise. Like, would you go on a long flight to attend like a coworker's wedding? And I was like, hang on, I don't know. It really depends on how close I am to that person.
Right. Right. Yeah. So this was all built against welfare trade-off ratio and cost and benefits. So like our willingness to spend money, effort, time, energy for others. So that's the mechanics that our research team designed it around.
Yeah, I love that. And I can imagine you had hundreds of questions and then you selected the ones which gave you a reliable and valid scale and,
That's exactly what we did.
right?
Yes.
And now you're trying to see, like, at a global scale, like, how do these scores work and, how do people score in different contexts? And that's really cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you for taking it. Thank you for the feedback. We do like a lightning round of questions where I just like throw a question, you just share your immediate response. So, first question, define kindness in one word.
Love.
Hmm. If you could get everyone around the world to do one kind act, what would it be?
Smile at someone.
Who do you want to thank for teaching you kindness?
My grandma.
What is kindness as a song?
Stand by me.
That's a great one. We have not gotten that one. I have to tell people every time they say a song, I'm like, yep, never got that one. That's a great one. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading The Miracle of Mindfulness by
Oh,
Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Zen master who teaches us about how to enjoy all the little moments.
okay. All right. Amazing. And then we end on action. So we are sponsored by the wonderful Wasserman Glasser family in honor of Sandy K. Wasserman, who lived a life spreading kindness, just filled everyone's life with it. And so we like to end on action with her signature tagline, which was "Thank you for your kindness," where she, would just thank service workers and the people around her. And it's the holiday season, even more so, I think, a time when we want to be acknowledging and thanking people. Is there anyone you want to thank that we could call or a text message, or you could tell us who you want to appreciate and acknowledge?
I would want to probably thank my cousins because
Oh,
they've been with me through both really difficult times and really good times. And I know that they'll always be there for me. So I'm going to
mm,
send them a message or a little video afterwards to thank them.
amazing. Thank you. Okay, friends, we are closing out. Please, this holiday, make sure you go check out Chris Hemsworth, A Road Trip to Remember. You can find it on Disney Hulu. You have the man of the hour who shaped so much of the show, Dr. Samtani here, and you heard it first. Social connections matter. It's an incredible thing to do acts of kindness and have it impact you. And we are just so grateful for you and your time today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jaclyn. Thank you to all the listeners for being here. I hope you have a great day ahead.
Why Kindness is made possible by the Wasserman Glasser family in loving memory of Kindmaker Sandra K. Wasserman. More information on our guest and topics from this episode are available in the show notes. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and would love to hear what you think. Please leave a review wherever you listen and join us on social media and at kindness.org to learn more about how you can be a kind maker. We will continue exploring this question, why kindness, throughout the season. So stay tuned, friend, and thank you for your kindness.